The officers' lounge on Station Harmony buzzed with conversation. Dozens of alien species filled the space, their uniforms marking them as military personnel from across the Galactic Council. Commander Karas of the Valorian Defense Fleet sat alone at a corner table, reviewing battle reports on his datapad. "You hear the latest Wraith story?" A Vexian officer said loudly at the bar. His scaled skin gleamed under the station lights. Karas looked up. That name again? For months he had heard whispers about some phantom pilot who appeared in battles across the galaxy. He considered it propaganda, nothing more. "Another myth," a young Centauri ensign replied. "No single pilot could do what they claim." The Dexian warrior slammed his drink down. "I was there at the Battle of Crescent Moon. I saw her with my own eyes." Karas found himself walking toward the bar. "You saw Wraith?" The Dexian turned, his yellow eyes meeting Karas's gaze. "Commander Karas, yes, I saw her. 3 months ago, my battalion was pinned down by Dominion forces. We had lost half our ships. Our shields were failing. We were preparing to die with honor, and," Karas asked. A single fighter appeared. No fleet markings. No identification beacon. Just an old human-designed craft that should have been in a museum. The Vexian's voice grew quiet. She tore through the Dominion formation like they were nothing. Impossible maneuvers. Shots that defied probability. She destroyed their command ship and vanished before we could even send a thank you message. Convenient story. Karas said. The Dexian pulled out his datapad and transferred a file to Karas. "Watch this? Then tell me it's a myth." Back at his table, Karas opened the file. Combat footage filled his screen. The Battle of Crescent Moon, recorded from a Dexian cruiser's external cameras. He watched the Dominion forces overwhelming the defenders. Then, just as the Vexian had described, a small fighter craft entered the battlefield. Karas leaned forward. The ship moved like nothing he had ever seen. It rolled, dove, and accelerated in patterns that should have killed any pilot from the GI forces alone. Energy weapons lanced out from the fighter with perfect accuracy. One shot, one kill. The Dominion. Command ship exploded in a brilliant flash. Then the fighter simply disappeared. Karas replayed the footage 3 times. This was real. Over the next hour, he approached other officers in the lounge. A Quellan pilot had encountered Wraith at the siege of Andra Station. A human merchant captain had seen her save a refugee convoy near the Barren Reach. An elderly Civian commander remembered her appearance at a battle. 15 years ago, every story followed the same pattern. Wraith appeared when defeat seemed certain. She fought with skills that defied explanation. She never stayed to accept gratitude or glory. She never asked for payment or recognition. Why does she do it? Karas asked the Civian commander. The old alien's face wrinkled in thought. No one knows. She responds to distress signals. Nothing more. The only communication she ever sends is her call sign. Just one word, Wraith. Has anyone tried to track her? Many have tried. All have failed. Her ship uses old human technology, but modified in ways our best engineers cannot understand. She jumps to hyperspace on routes that should be impossible. She hides in sensor shadows. She is truly a ghost. Karas returned to his quarters that night with copies of every Wraith encounter he could find. 17 confirmed sightings over 15 years. 43 battles where her intervention had changed the outcome. Thousands of lives saved. But who was she? And why did she fight alone? The next morning, Karas stood in the office of Admiral Vex, the Valorian fleet commander. "Sir, I request permission to investigate the Wraith phenomenon." Admiral Vex's tentacles rippled with what Karas recognized as amusement. The ghost pilot. "Commander, we have real threats to address. The Dominion Empire grows stronger every day. That's exactly why we need her, sir. If we could find Wraith, convince her to share her technology, her tactics." "She's a rogue element," the Admiral interrupted. "Useful, perhaps, but unpredictable. The Council has decided not to pursue her." Karas felt frustration rising. The Council has decided to do nothing about the Dominion for 5 years while they conquer world after world. "Careful, Commander. I apologize, sir. But Wraith has saved more lives than most of our fleets combined. She deserves our attention." The Admiral considered this. "Very well. You have 2 weeks. Find something concrete or drop this obsession." Karras saluted and left. 2 weeks. He would need help. He assembled a small team. Lieutenant Jin Park, a human communications specialist. Ensign Tala, a Quellan sensor expert. And Chief Warrant Officer Drex, a Vexian with extensive combat experience. They worked around the clock, analyzing Wraith's appearances. Karras noticed something the others had missed. Every battle Wraith entered had one thing in common: civilian populations under threat. "She's not just fighting battles," Karras told his team. "She's protecting people. Specifically, she's protecting species that cannot defend themselves." "Like a guardian," Jin said softly. "But why?" Tala asked. "What drives someone to fight alone for 15 years? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Karras's datapad lit up with an emergency bulletin. Colony World Meridian 7 was under attack. Dominion forces had launched a massive assault. The colony's defenses were failing. Casualties were mounting. Then, buried in the sensor data, Karras saw it. A familiar ship signature, heading toward Meridian-7.WRAITH, was responding to the distress call. "Get me a ship," Karras ordered. "Now, sir, we don't have authorization," Tala began. "Get me a ship," Karras repeated. He had a terrible feeling about this. The Dominion was too organized, too prepared. They had sent enough forces to crush a simple colony, a dozen times over. This wasn't an invasion. It was a trap. And Wraith was flying straight into it. Karras looked at his team. "She's saved thousands of lives. Now someone needs to save her. Who's with me?" One by one, they nodded. Within the hour, Karras's team launched from Station Harmony in a fast courier ship. Racing toward Meridian 7, they would arrive too late to stop Wraith from entering the battle. But perhaps they could arrive in time to help her survive it, in the black of space. A small fighter craft with no identifying marks dropped out of hyperspace near Meridian 7. A woman's hand moved across ancient controls with practiced precision. Wraith responding, she transmitted on all frequencies. "Hold on down there. Help has arrived." Then she ignited her engines and dove toward the waiting Dominion fleet. The trap was set. The prey had arrived, and across the galaxy. The legend was about to become something much more dangerous. The truth. Hash. Nobody knew who she was, but her call sign terrorized battlefields. Across the galaxy, ## Part 2. The trap, Springs Wraith. S-fighters screamed through the upper atmosphere of Meridian 7. Below, the colony cities burned. Dominion warships hung in orbit like vultures, bombarding defensive positions. She had seen this scenario hundreds of times before, but something felt wrong. Her sensors showed the Dominion had brought 3 times the ships needed to conquer one colony. Cruisers, destroyers, and fighter carriers filled the space above the planet. This was excessive force for a simple invasion. "All colony forces, this is Wraith," she transmitted. "Fall back to secondary positions. I'm engaging the orbital fleet." The colony commander's voice crackled through her speakers. "Wraith, you're real? Thank the stars." "We can't hold much longer. Just stay alive," she interrupted. "I'll handle the fleet." She pushed her fighter into a steep climb, breaking through the cloud layer. The Dominion ships filled her view screen. She began her attack run. The first cruiser never saw her coming. Wraith's modified plasma cannons punched through its shields with surgical precision. She targeted the engine core. The cruiser exploded in a silent flash. 2 destroyers moved to intercept. Wraith rolled, inverted, diving beneath their firing solution. Her ship moved with impossible grace, responding to her thoughts as much as her controls. The Lumine technology integrated into her systems made the fighter an extension of her will. She looped back, targeting the destroyer's sensor arrays. Blinded, they fired wildly, hitting each other instead of her. Wraith finished them with precise shots to their weapon systems. "This is too easy," she muttered. That's when the trap closed. Dozens of new contacts appeared on her sensors. Dominion fighters poured from hidden carrier ships that had been running silent. They formed a sphere around her position, cutting off escape routes. "There you are," a cold voice said on an open channel. "The famous Wraith. We've been waiting for you." Wraith recognized the voice. Admiral Thrain, the Dominion's most ruthless commander. She had encountered him twice before, but never directly. "You used innocent people as bait," she said, her voice hard. "I used opportunity," Thrain replied. "You're predictable, Ghost. You always come when the weak cry for help. It makes you easy to trap." The fighter sphere tightened. Wraith counted 47 enemy ships. Her weapons had ammunition for perhaps 20 confirmed kills before she would need to rely purely on evasion. "Colony forces, emergency evacuation now," she transmitted. "Get everyone underground. This is about to get messy." She didn't wait for confirmation. Wraith triggered a complex evasion pattern, her ship spiraling through the fighter formation. Her cannons blazed continuously. One shot, one kill. Her accuracy was perfect, as always, but there were too many. Energy blasts scorched her shields. Warning lights flashed across her console. A lucky shot from a Dominion ace penetrated her defenses. Tearing through her left wing, Wraith compensated, using the damaged wing to throw off her pursuers' targeting solutions. She destroyed 12 more fighters in a dazzling display of skill. Then a second hit struck her engine core. "Now," she whispered, watching her power levels drop. "Surrender, Wraith," Thrain's voice mocked. "Your legend ends today." Wraith looked at the planet below. The colony was still evacuating. If she retreated now, Thrain would resume the bombardment. Thousands would die. She made her decision in a heartbeat. "Come and get me." She redirected all remaining power to her forward shields and dove toward the planet's surface. The Dominion fighters followed, exactly as she planned. She led them on a chase through the atmosphere, pulling them away from the defenseless colony. Anti-aircraft fire from the ground batteries joined the fight, destroying several pursuers. But her ship was dying. Smoke filled the cockpit. Her controls felt sluggish and unresponsive. Wraith aimed for an open area outside the colony limits. She had perhaps 30 seconds before complete system failure. "You've saved them," she told herself. "That's what matters." At the last moment, she triggered her emergency crash protocols. The ship hit the ground hard, skipping across the rocky terrain like a stone on water. Metal screamed. Systems exploded. Then everything went still. Wraith hung upside down in her harness, blood dripping from a cut on her forehead. Her vision blurred. She could hear Dominion dropships landing nearby. They would be here in minutes. With trembling hands, she activated her ship's data core. It contained everything she had learned over 15 years. Intelligence on Dominion positions, their command structure, their weaknesses. If she was captured or killed, this information had to survive. She set the core to broadcast on encrypted military frequencies, hoping someone trustworthy would receive it. Then Wraith released her harness, grabbed her sidearm, and crawled from the wreckage. The Dominion soldiers were spreading out, searching the crash site. She could hear their harsh voices calling to each other. She limped toward a rocky outcropping, leaving a trail of blood behind her. Pain lanced through her side. Broken ribs, probably. Her left leg wasn't working properly, but she kept moving. 15 years of surviving impossible situations had taught her never to quit. She reached a crevice between two boulders and squeezed inside, disappearing from sight just as the first soldiers reached her crashed ship.
Find her.
A Dominion officer ordered. "Admiral Thrain wants her alive." Wraith pressed deeper into the crevice, which opened into a narrow cave system. She activated her suit's medical systems, injecting herself with painkillers and stimulants. She needed to stay conscious. As she moved through the darkness, she heard new sounds above. Different engines. A ship landing. Then voices, speaking in Galactic Common, spread out. "Find the crash site." That's a Valorian accent, Wraith whispered. Had the colony called for reinforcements? She heard weapons fire. The Valorians were engaging the Dominion ground forces. This was her chance. WRAITH emerged from the cave system into a maze of underground tunnels that the colonists used for shelter. Her helmet's sensors showed life signs ahead. She moved cautiously, weapon ready. "Don't move," a voice commanded. Wraith spun, finding herself facing for Valorian soldiers. The leader, a young commander with blue-tinted skin, held his weapon steady, but his eyes showed curiosity rather than hostility. "Who are you?" he demanded. Wraith's finger tightened on her trigger. These soldiers had accessed her data. Corshi could see one of them holding it. "They knew too much. That's classified," she said coldly. "We're here to help," the commander said. "My name is Karis. We've been studying your missions, Wraith. We know what you've been doing. You know nothing. We know you've saved thousands of lives. We know the Dominion set a trap for you. And we know you need medical attention before you bleed out." Wraith swayed slightly. He wasn't wrong about that last part. "Why did you come?" she asked. "Because you've been fighting alone for too long," Karis said simply. "Someone needed to help you for once." Wraith's weapon didn't lower. "I work alone. I fight alone. I survive alone. That's how it has to be." "Why?" Karis pressed. "Because everyone I fight with dies." Her voice cracked slightly. "Everyone I protect eventually falls. The only constant is me moving from one lost cause to the next. Then why do you keep fighting?" Wraith was silent for a long moment. "Because someone has to." Above them, explosions rocked the tunnel system. The Dominion was advancing. "We need to move," one of Karis's soldiers said urgently. Karis extended his hand toward Wraith. "You can keep running alone and eventually die in some forgotten battlefield. Or you can accept help for once and maybe accomplish something bigger." Wraith looked at his hand, at his earnest face. At the data core that held her secrets, she made her decision. Nobody knew who she was, but her call sign. Terrorized battlefields across the galaxy, #. Part 3. Echoes of the past. Wraith holstered her weapon but didn't take Karis's hand. "Follow me. I know these tunnels." She led them deeper into the underground network, her training overriding her pain. Behind them, the sounds of the Dominion search parties grew distant. The Valorian team stayed close, their commander keeping pace beside her. "How badly are you hurt?" Karis asked. "I'll survive. I always do." Wraith's voice was flat, emotionless. They reached an abandoned maintenance chamber deep beneath the colony. Wraith finally allowed herself to stop, leaning against a wall. Her vision swam. Jin Park, the human communications specialist on Karis's team, moved forward with a medical kit. "Let me help," Wraith tensed. "I'm fine. You're bleeding from multiple wounds," Jin said firmly. "Let me work, or you'll be unconscious in 10 minutes, Wraith relented. As Jin treated her injuries, Karis held up the data core. This started broadcasting encrypted information. Military intelligence about the Dominion. Battle tactics. Coordinates to hidden bases. "Where did you get all this?" 15 years of fighting them," Wraith said through gritted teeth as Jin sealed a wound on her side. "Every battle teaches you something about your enemy." 15 years, Karis repeated. "You've been doing this since the early days of the Dominion expansion. Were you part of the Council forces?" Wraith's eyes fixed on him with sudden intensity. "What does the data core say?" Karis looked at his datapad, scrolling through decoded files. His expression changed as he read. "Your ship identification. SF Valiant. United Human Space Fleet. That ship was listed as destroyed 15 years ago with all hands lost." "All hands were lost," Wraith said quietly. The chamber fell silent except for the distant rumble of explosions above. "Who were you?" Karis asked softly. Wraith closed her eyes. For 15 years, she had been nothing but a call sign, a ghost, a legend without a face. Maybe it was time for someone to know the truth. "My name was Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen. I was second officer aboard the Valiant. Humanity's first deep space exploration vessel." The data core activated, projecting holographic images into the air. Karis watched as Sarah's story unfolded before them. ****, the UHSF Valiant had been magnificent. an exploration cruiser carrying a crew of 200, including scientists, diplomats, and families. Sarah had served alongside her husband. Marcus and their daughter Emily had lived in the ship's civilian quarters. They had been making humanity's first contact with distant civilizations when they detected a massive space battle near a beautiful blue planet. Two fleets engaged in brutal combat. One fleet bore the insignia Sarah would later come to hate the Dominion Empire. The other belonged to a species called the Luminae. Captain Rivera made the decision to intervene. Sarah's voice continued. We didn't know the politics. We just saw one side massacring colonies on the planet below. We tried to broker peace. The hologram showed the Valiant positioning itself between the fleets, broadcasting diplomatic messages. The Dominion response was immediate and merciless. They targeted our engines first, disabled us. Then they systematically destroyed every section of the ship. Sarah's voice remained steady, but Kara saw her hands trembling. They killed everyone, crew, scientists, families, children. The hologram showed escape pods launching from the dying Valiant. One by one, the Dominion ships targeted and destroyed them. No survivors. No mercy. I was in engineering when the attack started. By the time I reached an escape pod, most of the ship was gone. I launched and watched my home burn. Watched my crewmates die. My husband. My daughter. All of them. Jin had stopped working, her eyes filled with tears. Even the hardened warrior Drex looked shaken. The Dominion hunted the remaining pods, Sarah continued. They were going to kill everyone. Then the Luminae sacrificed their last warship to cover our escape. They drew the Dominion fire, giving me time to reach hyperspace. But they had no chance. That ship, with 300 Luminae aboard, died saving one human. The hologram shifted to show Sarah's pod drifting in space, damaged and life support failing. Then a Luminae civilian transport found her. They rescued me, healed me. When I asked why they had sacrificed so much, they said it was because every life matters. Even one stranger from a species they had never met before. Sarah spent 6 months with the Luminae, recovering from her physical and emotional wounds. They showed her their culture, their philosophy of protecting all life. They had been a peaceful species, explorers and scientists, until the Dominion came. They were being exterminated, Sarah said. The Dominion wanted their territory and resources. The Galactic Council was debating sanctions, discussing diplomatic solutions, while an entire species was being wiped out. The Luminae had given Sarah one of their fighters, modified with their technology, advanced sensors that could read battlefield conditions like reading emotions, weapons that responded to thought as much as action, engineering that bent the rules of physics. They asked me to tell the galaxy what happened, to make sure someone remembered them. Sarah left the Luminae with that promise. She returned to their space 3 months later to keep her word. The Luminae were gone. Every colony destroyed. Every ship reduced to debris. An entire species erased from existence while the Galactic Council filed reports and held committee meetings. That's when I became Wraith, Sarah said. I had lost everyone I loved. I had watched a beautiful civilization die because no one acted. I decided I would never stand by again. Never let bureaucracy and politics delay action while innocent people died. Kara's understood now. You've been fighting the Dominion alone for 15 years, saving the species they target, protecting those who can't protect themselves. Someone has to, Sarah said simply. But why alone? Jin asked. Why not join the Council forces? Sarah's laugh was bitter. The same council that watched the Luminae die? The same council that has spent 5 years debating how to respond to Dominion aggression while dozens of worlds have fallen? I asked for help 15 years ago. I begged them to act. They told me to be patient. So you decided to be the help you wished existed, Kara said quietly. Every battle I've fought, every colony I've saved, I carry the memory of those who couldn't be saved. The Luminae. My crew, my family, they're all ghosts now. So I became one too. The chamber shook as a particularly large explosion rocked the area above. Dominion forces were getting closer. Drex checked his tactical display. Commander, we need to move. They're sweeping this sector. But Karas was staring at the data core with growing realization. There's more here. Coordinates, reconnaissance data, ship movements over 15 years. He looked at Sarah with new understanding. You haven't just been fighting random battles. You've been conducting reconnaissance. Sarah met his gaze. Every time I engaged the Dominion, I learned something. Fleet compositions, response times, command protocols. Over 15 years, I've mapped their entire military structure. Why? Sarah stood, wincing at the pain, but steady now. Jin's medical treatment had stabilized her enough to function. Because knowing your enemy is the first step to defeating them. And I found something, which manipulated the data core, bringing up new information. A massive space station appeared in the hologram, hidden deep in Dominion space. Their central command nexus. Every military operation, every fleet movement, every invasion all coordinated from this single point. The Dominion appears unstoppable because they fight with perfect coordination. But it's all controlled from here. Karas felt his heart's racing. If someone destroyed that station, their entire military would fall into chaos, Sarah finished. Individual fleets would operate independently. Their perfect coordination would collapse. The species they're conquering would have a chance to fight back. You want to attack it? Karas said. I need to attack it, Sarah corrected. It's the only way to stop them. The Galactic Council will debate for another 5 years while the Dominion conquers the galaxy. But one strike at the right target could change everything. Suicide, Drex said bluntly. One ship against an entire command station? Sarah's smile was cold. I've been on a suicide mission for 15 years. At least this one matters. Karas made a decision that would define the rest of his life. Then you won't go alone. Itzar stared at him. You don't understand what you're saying. This is treason against the Council. This is throwing away your career, possibly your life. I understand perfectly, Karas said. He looked at his team. Jin nodded immediately. Tala's tentacles rippled with determination. Even Drex growled his approval. The Council failed you 15 years ago, Karas continued. They failed the Luminae. They're failing everyone the Dominion threatens right now. Maybe it's time someone acted instead of debated. Sarah felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not for herself, but for the mission. Maybe this time, the ghosts would rest. Hesh, nobody knew who she was, but her call sign terrorized battlefields across the galaxy. Hesh Hesh. Part 4. The real target. The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats. Sarah Chen, who had been Wraith for 15 years, studied the 4 Valorian soldiers who had just committed treason for a ghost they barely knew. Part of her wanted to refuse their help. Everyone she fought beside died. It was a law as certain as gravity. But another part of her, the part that still remembered being Lieutenant Commander Chen, with a crew and a mission, recognized something in Karas's eyes. Determination. The same fire that had driven her for so long. If you do this, there's no going back, she warned. The Council will brand you traitors. The Dominion will hunt you. Your families have no family, Karas interrupted. My world was destroyed by the Dominion 3 years ago. The Council sent aid packages and sympathy messages. My people needed action. They got paperwork. Jin spoke next. I'm human. Earth has been isolated for 15 years since the Valiant incident. The Council declared human space a quarantine zone for our own protection. They're protecting us right into irrelevance. Alas, sensor stocks drooped sadly. My species, the Quellan, have lost 6 colony worlds to Dominion expansion. Each time, the Council promises action. Each time, nothing changes. Drex simply said, I'm a warrior. Warriors fight. The Council makes warriors file reports. Sarah felt the walls she had built around herself crack slightly. All right, but we do this my way. First, we need to get off this planet. My ship is destroyed. We have a courier ship in orbit, Kara said. Fast, but lightly armed. Not exactly assault craft. It'll have to do. We need to reach my supply cache on Station Kepler 7. I've been preparing for this mission for 3 years. They moved through the tunnels, Sarah leading despite her injuries. Her knowledge of the underground systems proved invaluable. They avoided 3 Dominion patrol groups and emerged at an abandoned mining complex on the colony's edge. Above, stars glittered through the dust clouds. Kara signaled their ship, which descended quietly to the surface. They boarded quickly, and within minutes, Meridian 7 shrank behind them. On the bridge, Sarah accessed the ship's navigation systems. Set course for the Kepler Nebula. There's a hidden station inside the gas clouds. The Council shut down Kepler 7 4 years ago, Tala said. Said it was too expensive to maintain. Sarah smiled grimly. I know. I bought the station from a salvage company using black market credits I've earned over the years. The Dominion thinks it's abandoned. The Council has forgotten it exists. Perfect hiding spot. The journey took 2 days. During that time, Sarah worked with the team to plan the assault. She spread holographic maps across the briefing table, showing the Dominion Command Nexus in detail. The station is called Apex Command, she explained. It's the size of a small moon, protected by 3 defensive fleets, sensor nets, shield generators that could withstand a supernova. How do you know all this? Jin asked. 5 years ago, I infiltrated a Dominion supply convoy and planted trackers on their equipment. I've been monitoring their communications ever since. I know the station's layout, its defenses, and most importantly, its weakness. She highlighted a section of the station. The command core is here, deep inside the structure. It's protected by multiple shield layers and armored bulkheads. But every shield needs power. The station's main reactor is located here, exactly 43 decks below the core. You want to cause a reactor breach? Kara said. Exactly. If we can overload the reactor, it'll create a cascade failure. The shields will collapse, and the resulting explosion will destroy the core. The Dominion's coordination dies with it. Drex studied the map with a warrior's eye. The reactor will be heavily guarded. They're best soldiers, Sarah confirmed. But they'll never expect an attack. The station is too well defended. No sane commander would attempt this. Good thing we're not sane, Jin muttered. They arrived at Station Kepler 7, drifting in the colorful gases of the nebula. The station looked dead, its windows dark, its docking ports empty. But as their ship approached, hidden lights activated. A docking bay door opened. Inside, Sarah had built her base of operations. Weapon racks lined the walls. Spare parts for her fighter-filled storage containers. And in the center of the bay sat her real achievement, a second fighter. Identical to the one she had crashed on Meridian 7. You built a backup, Kara said with admiration. Always have a backup plan, Sarah replied. She walked to the fighter, running her hand along its hull. The Luminae taught me that. They also taught me their engineering. I've been building this for 2 years. Over the next hours, Sarah showed them her preparation. She had military-grade weapons, stolen from Dominion supply depots. She had detailed maps of Apex Command, compiled from hundreds of reconnaissance missions. She had fake identification codes that would get them past the outer defenses. But most impressive was the plan itself. We'll need multiple ships, Sarah explained. My fighter can get us past the outer fleet using stealth technology. But once we're inside, we'll need to split up. A small team will head to the reactor. Another team will create a distraction in the station's main hangar, drawing security forces away. Suicide mission, Drex said again. Probably, Sarah agreed. But here's the thing about suicide missions. If you plan to die anyway, you can take incredible risks. She looked at each of them. I've been running suicide missions for 15 years. The only difference is, I always plan to survive just long enough to complete the objective. This time, the objective is big enough to matter. What about extraction? Tala asked. Sarah was quiet for a moment. There is no extraction. Once that reactor goes critical, we'll have maybe 10 minutes to get clear. And that's if everything goes perfectly. The room fell silent. The reality of what they were planning settled over them like a shroud. Jin broke the silence. Admiral Thrain. You've encountered him before? Sarah's expression darkened. Twice. He was the one who gave the order to destroy the Valiant. He personally commanded the fleet that exterminated the Luminae. He's brilliant, ruthless, and absolutely loyal to the Dominion's cause. He'll be at Apex Command, Kara said. Almost certainly. He coordinates all major military operations from there. Sarah met Karas's eyes. If we do this, we'll probably face him directly. Good, Kara said coldly. He has much to answer for. They spent the next day preparing. Sarah trained them in Luminae combat techniques. She taught them how to read her fighters' advanced sensors. She showed them the secret passages and maintenance tunnels that existed on all Dominion stations. On the second night, as they gathered for a final briefing, Karas asked the question that had been bothering him. Why now? You've been planning this for years. Why did you wait? Sarah looked at the hologram of Apex Command. Because I was alone, I could gather intelligence, prepare the plan, build the equipment, but a mission like this requires more than one person. I needed people who would understand, people who had seen the Council's failure firsthand, people who were willing to risk everything. She smiled sadly. I never thought I'd find them. I thought I'd die alone in some forgotten battle, my intelligence dying with me. Then you showed up on Meridian 7. We found each other, Kara said. Maybe that means something. Maybe, Sarah allowed. Or maybe it just means we'll die together instead of separately, Jin laughed. You're terrible at inspirational speeches. For the first time in years, Sarah laughed too. Really laughed. It felt strange, like using muscles she had forgotten existed. The next morning, they loaded into their ships. Sarah's fighter would lead. Kara's and his team would follow in the courier ship, which they had armed with every weapon Sarah had stockpiled. As they prepared to launch, Sarah activated a communication to the group. Listen to me carefully. Once we start this, everything changes. We're not soldiers anymore. We're not following orders. We're 4 people who decided that doing the right thing matters more than following the rules. She paused, then continued. The Luminae had a saying, 1 candle can light 1,000 more. We're going to light a candle today. Whether it spreads or dies with us, at least we tried.
For the Luminae,
Jin said softly. For everyone the Dominion has hurt, Karas added. For the future, Tala whispered. For glory in battle, Drex growled. Sarah felt something warm in her chest. Not hope exactly, but something close. Purpose shared with others. For all of us. Let's go make some ghosts. The ships launched from Station Kepler 7, disappearing into the nebula. Behind them, the station's lights dimmed again, hiding their base. Ahead, through hyperspace, and past a dozen star systems, Apex Command waited. Admiral Thrain waited. The Dominion's coordinated might waited. But they wouldn't be waiting for long. Wraith was coming, and this time, she wasn't alone. Nobody knew who she was, but her call sign terrorized battlefields. Across the galaxy Part 5, Wraith No Mortha Dominion Command Nexus, Apex Command hung in space like a mechanical moon. 3 defensive fleets patrolled in precise formations. Sensor arrays swept the surrounding space endlessly. It was, by any military analysis, impregnable. Sarah Chen, known across the galaxy as Wraith, studied the station through her fighter's sensors. Beside her, flying in tight formation, Karas's courier ship waited for her signal. Remember the plan? Sarah transmitted. We used the fake credentials to get past the outer fleet. Once inside the defensive perimeter, we split. Karas, you create chaos in the main hangar. I'll go for the reactor, and if they recognize you, Jin asked. They won't. Wraith's ship was destroyed on Meridian 7. They think I'm dead or captured. We're just another supply convoy returning from the colony attack. She activated the stolen identification codes. Her fighter's transponder now read as a Dominion scout ship. The courier vessel registered as a supply freighter. They approached the outer fleet slowly, maintaining standard traffic patterns. A Dominion cruiser scanned them. Sarah held her breath. Supply convoy Delta 7. You are cleared for approach, a board Dominion officer transmitted. Proceed to Hangar Bay 12. They were in. The defensive fleets parted, allowing them passage. Sarah guided her fighter toward the massive station. Up close, Apex Command was even more impressive. Weapons, batteries covered every surface. Smaller stations orbited it like moons around a planet. This was the beating heart of the Dominion war machine. Steady, Sarah whispered to herself. Almost there. Entered the hangar bay, landing among dozens of other ships. Dominion personnel moved about their duties, loading supplies, refueling fighters, conducting maintenance. No one paid attention to two more ships in the constant traffic. Sarah sealed her helmet and exited her fighter. She wore stolen Dominion armor, her face hidden. Karas and his team did the same. Emerging from their ship carrying equipment cases, they moved through the station with purpose. Sarah had memorized every corridor, every checkpoint. She led them deeper into the structure, away from the busy hangar levels. At the first checkpoint, guards stopped them. Purpose, a Dominion soldier demanded. Reactor maintenance crew, Sarah said in flawless Dominion dialect. We have orders to inspect the cooling systems. The guard checked his data pad, seeing the false work orders Sarah had inserted into the station's computer systems days ago. He waved them through. They descended through 43 decks, encountering 6 more checkpoints. Each time, Sarah's preparation paid off. Her codes worked. Her cover story held. Finally, they reached a junction point. Ahead, 2 corridors split. One led to the reactor core, the other to the main command level. This is where we separate, Sarah said. She looked at Karas and his team. Give me 30 minutes to reach the reactor. Then start your distraction. Make it loud. What about extraction? Tala asked. Sarah handed Karas a small device. This is a remote detonator for the reactor overload. Once I set the charges, I'll need 10 minutes to get clear before you trigger it. After that, you'll have maybe 5 minutes to reach your ship and get away before the station explodes. What about you? Karas pressed. I'll find my own way out, Sarah said, but they all heard the lie in her voice. Karas grabbed her arm. Sarah Chen, you don't get to die here. Not after everything. Sarah removed his hand gently. I'm already dead, Karas. I died 15 years ago with the Valiant. Everything since then has been borrowed time. But you have a future. Make sure this mission matters. Before he could argue, she turned and ran down the corridor toward the reactor. Karas watched her go, then looked at his team. She's not going to make it out, is she? No, Drex said quietly. But we will. And we'll make sure everyone knows what she did. They moved toward the command level. Asterisk, 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 Sarah navigated the reactor level with practiced stealth. She had studied these corridors and holographic simulations 1,000 times. She knew where the guards patrolled, where the sensors watched, where the blind spots existed. She planted explosives at key structural points, setting them to Sarah's remote detonator. The reactor itself was a massive cylinder of contained energy, humming with power that fed the entire station. Almost done, she whispered. Placing the final charge. Well done, Wraith, a cold voice said behind her. Or should I say Lieutenant Commander Chen? Sarah spun, her weapon rising. Admiral Thrain stood at the corridor entrance, flanked by a dozen elite soldiers. Their weapons pointed at her. I wondered if you would come, Thrain continued. When we analyzed the wreckage of your ship on Meridian 7, we found it strange that there was no body. Then I thought, what would the famous ghost pilot do if she survived? Sarah's mind raced. You knew I would target this station. I hoped you would. You've been a thorn in our side for too long. This seemed the perfect opportunity to end the legend of Wraith permanently. Then you know what I've planted here? Sarah said, her finger moving to her detonator. Motion sensors detected your explosives 5 minutes ago? Thrain replied calmly. My engineers are disarming them as we speak. Your suicide mission has failed. Sarah felt cold dread. If they disarmed the charges, the reactor wouldn't explode. The mission would fail. Everything would be for nothing. Then the station shook violently. Alarms blared. Thrain's communicator erupted with frantic messages. Admiral, we're under attack. Unknown forces in the main hangar. They've destroyed 3 fighter squadrons and are targeting the primary shield generators. Kara's, he had started the distraction early. In the chaos, Sarah moved. She shot 2 guards, rolled behind a support pillar, and sprinted toward the reactor core. Thrain's forces fired, their shots tearing through equipment. "Stop her!" Thrain roared. Sarah reached the reactor's main control panel. She didn't try to detonate her charges. Thrain was right. They were being disarmed. But she had a backup plan. She always had a backup plan. She accessed the reactor controls directly and initiated an emergency purge of the cooling systems. Klaxon screamed as the reactor temperature began to climb. "What have you done?" Thrain demanded. "Something I should have done 15 years ago," Sarah said. "Chosen to act instead of waiting for someone else to save the day." The reactor temperature climbed rapidly. Without cooling, it would reach critical mass in minutes. An explosion this size would tear the station apart. Thrain realized the truth. "You can't stop it now. You'll die here too." "I know," Sarah said calmly. She had made peace with this outcome long ago, but she had given Karaz and his team their chance. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk on the command level. Karaz fought through waves of Dominion soldiers. Jin's technical skills had shut down the internal security systems. Talah's sensor readings guided them through the chaos. Drex's combat prowess cleared their path. They reached the main shield generator controls. Karaz placed charges on the primary power couplings. "Reactor core temperature critical," Talah announced, reading her scanner. Sarah triggered an overload. "She's still down there," Kara said. He looked at the detonator Sarah had given him. "We need to get her out, Commander. There's no time," Drex said. "The reactor will explode in 3 minutes. We need to reach our ship." Kara's made his decision. Jin, Talah, Drex, get to the hangar. Prepare the ship for immediate departure. "What about you?" Jin asked. "I'm getting Sarah out." "That's an order." They hesitated only a moment, then ran. Kara sprinted toward the reactor level, fighting through confused Dominion forces who didn't know whether to pursue intruders or evacuate. He found Sarah locked in a firefight with Thrain's forces. The reactor behind her glowed with dangerous heat. The metal walls were beginning to melt. "Karaz." Sarah shouted over the noise. "What are you doing here?" "Get out. Not without you." He provided covering fire, driving Thrain's soldiers back. Thrain himself stood in the open, his weapon aimed at Sarah. "You took everything from me 15 years ago. My perfect record. My reputation. You made me look weak by surviving. You took everything from me," Sarah shot back. "My family. Crew. An entire species. You don't get to play the victim." Thrain fired. Sarah dove, but the shot caught her in the shoulder. She fell, her weapon clattering away. Kara shot Thrain twice. The Admiral's shields absorbed the impacts, but it gave Sarah time to reach her weapon. "Reactor breach in 90 seconds, the computer announced. Move." Kara's grabbed Sarah, pulling her toward the exit. Behind them, Thrain struggled to his feet, his armor smoking. They ran through corridors filling with smoke and steam. The station shook continuously now. Sections were already being sealed to contain the damage. But nothing could stop what was coming. They reached the hangar to find absolute chaos. Ships were scrambling to evacuate. Dominion personnel fought each other for escape craft. Jin had the courier ship ready, engines hot, go. Karaz pushed Sarah up the boarding ramp. They lifted off as the reactor finally breached. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. It started at the core, a sphere of pure energy that expanded outward like a newborn star. Shield generators exploded. Hull sections tore away. The command nexus, the most powerful military installation in the Dominion Empire, died in seconds. The shockwave caught their ship, throwing it wildly. Drex fought the controls while Talah frantically calculated a jump to hyperspace. They escaped by milliseconds. Watching through the rear cameras as Apex Command became a cloud of debris. They had done it. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk 1 week later. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with activity. News of Apex Command's destruction had spread across the galaxy. The Dominion military, without central coordination, had descended into chaos. Conquered worlds were launching rebellions. Dominion fleets fought each other over conflicting orders. Kara stood before the council, formally charged with treason. His team stood beside him. They had surrendered voluntarily, knowing this moment would come. "You attacked a sovereign military installation," the council leader said. "You violated every treaty and law. What do you have to say?" "I say that while you debated, we acted," Kara's replied. "While you filed reports, we saved lives. The Dominion was conquering the galaxy, and you were content to let it happen as long as the paperwork was in order. You could have triggered a galactic war." "We ended one," Jin interrupted. "The Dominion's coordination is broken. Their conquered worlds are free. Species that would have been exterminated will survive." The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some demanded execution. Others called for pardons. The debate raged for hours. Then a transmission arrived. It was broadcast on every channel simultaneously, reaching every world in the galaxy. Sarah Chen's face appeared. She stood in her fighter, the stars behind her. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, formerly of the United Human Space Fleet. For 15 years, you have known me as Wraith. I have fought in your wars. I have saved your worlds. I have done what your governments would not act when action was needed." She continued, her voice strong. "The Dominion Empire rose to power because good people did nothing. The Luminae died because the Council debated instead of acted. My crew died because no one came to help. I will not let that happen again. Today, I am announcing the formation of the Valiant Initiative, an independent force dedicated to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We will respond to distress calls. We will fight tyranny wherever we find it. We will not wait for permission." Images appeared beside her face ships, volunteers from dozens species, supplies, and weapons. To those who want to debate whether this is legal, I say this: I stopped caring about your laws when they failed to protect the innocent. To those who want to join us, you know where to find me. The transmission ended. In the council chamber, silence fell. They had wanted to put Wraith on trial. Instead, she had declared independence from their authority entirely. The council leader looked at Karis. "Did you know about this?" "No," Karis said honestly, "but I support it completely. This is unprecedented." "Good," Karis replied. The precedents weren't working. The council eventually released Karis and his team. They had no choice. Public opinion across the galaxy had shifted. Wraith Sarachin had become more than a legend. She had become a symbol. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 3 months later, Sarah stood on the bridge of a new ship. Not a fighter this time, but a frigate. The Valiant Initiative had grown beyond her wildest expectations. Volunteers from 50 species had joined. Donations of ships and supplies arrived daily. Kara served as her second-in-command. Jin handled communications. Tala managed sensors. Drex trained new combat pilots. Distress signal from the Terrorized system, Jin announced. Colony under attack by raiders. "Set course," Sarah ordered. Maximum speed. As they jumped to hyperspace, she looked at the memorial wall she had installed. Photos of her family, her crew, the Luminae. All the ghosts she carried. But beside those photos were new images. Kara's and his team. The worlds they had saved. The volunteers who believed in the mission. "For everyone we couldn't save," Sarah whispered, "we'll save the ones we can." The Valiant Initiative had begun. And across the galaxy, those who preyed on the weak learned to fear a new sound, not the whisper of a ghost, but the promise of someone who would always come when called. Someone who would always fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Someone who proved that one person, refusing to give up, could change everything. Sarah Chen was no longer Wraith. She was something better. She was hope.